Iowa Secretary of State Matt Schultz has been looking into voter fraud for the last year and a half. Now, he spent about $150,000 trying to fulfill his promise of rooting out voter fraud and trying to ensure ballot security over in Iowa. You know, because apparently they have a giant voter fraud problem or something. Now, he's, of course, one of many Republicans that love to trot out this tired kind of idea that obviously the only reason that Democrats are winning elections is because, well, they're voting twice, they're having Mickey Mouse and Pluto the dog go out and vote, and that's why they're winning, or they're voting twice or three times, or they're getting help from the long dead acorn, which is insane. And so they're on this mission to prove that voter fraud exists. Well, he's actually found some. Oh my God. Now, how much? He's found 5 cases, 5 guilty pleas, and 5 dismissals. And so out of all the voting populace in Iowa, he's found about 5 people guilty of voter fraud. And not necessarily what you would think of as voter fraud. And I'll get into some of that later. And so, of course, this guy originally claimed that, there's so much voter fraud going on in Iowa, and that we're sorting through a mountain of evidence. All these people out there voting for Democrats, and obviously they're messing with the polls and voting twice, and we've got just so much stuff to go through and to root through. And we just want to protect Iowans' sacred voting privileges. So we're going to waste all of this taxpayer money to go and find and prosecute about 5 separate cases. What kind of cases were they? Well, I've got a couple of examples. One woman named Beth Ann Gallagher, she had actually cast an absentee ballot on behalf of her daughter. Now, her daughter moved to Minnesota and thought she wouldn't be eligible to vote there. Now, it turns out that after she had mailed her ballot, the daughter texted her and said that she was eligible to vote in Minnesota, at which time Miss Beth Ann Gallagher had actually went to the polling place and self-reported that the incident took place at the Delaware County Auditor's Office. That's considered voter fraud, and she pled guilty and paid a nearly $150 fine. So right there, that's an example of voter fraud. Thought she wouldn't be able to vote, so she self-reports. Now, a lot of these are cases of where they did something wrong, they found out they were doing something wrong, and they self-reported. And they said, look, I think I messed up. So it's not even malicious in most cases. Now, there was one malicious one, and that's, of course, the story of a man named Terry Hambrick. Now, he registered via the Motor Voter Act. Interesting. Now, he was attempting to steal his dead brother's identity. Okay, so I think this guy has a few more problems than voter fraud, like identity theft. Now, of course, he was trying to acquire a driver's license under the name of his brother, who died of SIDS in 1991. Wow, real classy guy trying to take on the identity of your dead brother. Kind of an asshole, right? And, of course, while doing that, he accidentally registered to vote. Now, he was not caught by Mr. Schultz's probe into this. No. He was actually caught because he was arrested for drunk driving, and law enforcement officials determined that he was not who he claimed to be. So that $150,000 that Schultz had actually spent on this probe didn't even find a lot of the people, which is crazy. Now, there was another man, of course, who pleaded guilty, a man named Jason Rollin. Now, Rollin was a felon. Now, he was trying to acquire a non-operator ID card, so he just wanted an ID. He registered to vote without realizing that he attested to not being a felon. He must have not done a checkbox or something that indicated that he was a felon. So, when he received a voter ID card in the mail, he didn't just go to the polls, did he? No. He actually self-reported to authorities. Now, Schultz, saying that, obviously being the compassionate conservative, right? You remember compassionate conservatism? Was just like, well, obviously you self-reported that you made a mistake. Well, okay, we'll let you go. No. His office actually tried to charge him with a felony election misconduct. Now, however, that is not what he got charged with. Ultimately, he pled guilty to misdemeanor fraudulent practices. Okay, so he made a mistake. He didn't check a box that he was supposed to. He self-reported and immediately got in trouble for a crime. Now, this is the type of voter fraud that's going on. It's not people trying to intentionally misrepresent themselves, at least in order to vote. The one situation that was somebody trying to steal someone else's identity, it wasn't to vote. It was so he could get a driver's license. So this is the kind of stuff that Schultz actually ultimately found. So it's not really, shouldn't really be considered voter fraud. As far as, oops, I fucked up on 2 different circumstances, and another guy was just an asshole trying to steal his brother's identity. And these are just 3 of the 5 cases that ultimately were proven guilty. No, but apparently Iowa has a massive voter fraud problem. America has a massive voter fraud problem. Did you know that between the years 2000 and 2010, over 649 million votes were cast in the general elections alone? Do you know how many people were actually caught doing voter fraud? There were 15 cases of voter fraud. And that's from actually impersonation. When you're trying to say you're somebody else so you can vote. 15 cases. That is incredibly statistically insignificant to the amount of votes cast. And far from being a massive problem of voter fraud. Like a lot of these right-wing politicians tend to make this problem out to be. In fact, do you know what actually happens at a higher statistical rate than voter fraud impersonation? UFOs. UFO reports. According to 2000 to 2010, there were 47,000 UFO sightings. Do you know what also happens more than voter fraud? Americans getting struck by lightning. You are more odds to be killed by a falling vending machine than to perpetrate voter fraud. And in this case, they're actually identified lying objects. They're your congressmen. And it just goes back to about how conservatives don't want you to vote. As the modern founder of the conservative movement had said in his famous video, the Goo-Goo Syndrome, the higher the voting population gets, the less chance we have of getting elected. And it's because their ideas suck. Their ideas are unpopular, their ideas are old, they're stale, and they suck, and they don't represent the vast majority of Americans anymore. And so, yeah, that's why they're trying to restrict voting in all these different places. And they're trying to enact stronger voter ID laws under the guise of trying to protect everyone's right to vote and to secure our ballot against the massive amounts of voter fraud. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and share with your friends. If you want to see more, go to our channel at youtube.com/TYTNation. And if you really want to support the show, support this channel, go to our fundraising campaign at www.patreon.com/TYTNation. The website is in the description below. Thank you guys, and keep watching.